Yo. Welcome back to Son of a Preacher Man. SOAP Man. SOAP Man. If you new to this channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. Get the likes up for your boy, please. Yo, we gonna jump right into this. As usual, I got a lot to dig into, so we just gonna hop right off into it. We are in the book of Samuel. Before we get started, let me reiterate, and you done heard me say this a lot the last few episodes. When we started the book of Samuel, we are still in the time period of the book of Judges. It's a barbaric, uncivilized time, okay? But we coming towards the end of that time. And when I first started in the book of Samuel, I told you that it was going to be three main figures that we were going to talk about. And that these three characters were going to be involved in this triangle of power. They were going to wind up immersed in this trilogy of power, okay, to where the three of them is going to be tossing back and forth, tossing power back and forth, struggling for it. I'm not really sure how to word or describe it, but power is going to be like in all three of their hands, and it's like they vying for it. You will see what I'm saying. The Bible tell the story much better than I can. I'm just the narrator. You know what I mean? What can I say? Anyways, so when I first started talking or, reading out the book of Samuel, Samuel was the introduction of the first character, who was Samuel, and he ended up becoming the last judge of Israel. So in my last episode, we introduced the second of this trilogy, the second of the two characters in this power triangle, as I like to call it. And that was Saul, the first king of Israel. And that's what the last episode was about. It was about how Saul became the first king of Israel. Now, folks, I gotta tell you, it's not unlike me to interject my personal feelings into the matter. It is my show. I must tell you, this is one of the saddest stories in the Bible to me. To me personally, the story of King Saul, it's right up there at the top. I don't know if it's the most tragic story in the Bible, but for me personally, it's right up there at the top, and here's why. Because I see a lot of myself in Saul. I see a lot of the average person in Saul. A lot of us share Saul's flaws. You know what I mean? He's a normal guy. And if you go back to the last episode, he starts off, he has a good start. He looks the part of a king. He's regal. He's tall. He's handsome. He's strong. He's from a well-known, powerful family. He is the quintessential pick for the job. And the people like him. And as soon as he takes the throne, he is tested by his neighbors, the Philistines, the Ammonites, and he shows and he proves. He turns out, he's a good king. He's the real McCoy, and everything starts out so good. And so, in the last episode, we talked about how Saul defeated King Nahash and the Ammonites, and the people were so impressed with him that they anointed him king a second time and threatened to put to death the men who doubted him initially. The men who initially doubted him. But folks, You know the old saying, all good things must come to an end. And for Saul, it's going to come to a tragic end, one of the most tragic ends in any story I've ever read. I feel for the man. I'm almost at a loss of words because, I didn't write any of this down. It's all unscripted, but let's just dig into it because nobody says it better than the Bible itself. Let's dig into exactly what I'm talking about with King Saul, the first king of Israel. Okay, so we're going to start in 1 Samuel chapter 13, verses 1 through 6, and it reads, Saul reigned 1 year. And when he had reigned 2 years over Israel, Saul chose him 3,000 men of Israel. Wherefore 2,000 were with Saul in Michmash and in Mount Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin. And the rest of the people he sent every man to his tent. So let me stop right there. If you remember, in the last episode, when the people came to Samuel and they said, make us a king over us, to rule over us and to judge over us and to fight for us, Samuel said, this is going to be the manner of the king that's going to rule over you. This is what you asking me for. And he said he's going to take your choice and goodliest men. And you going to see that happen in real time as we go on. Here you see it starting. Here you see the start of it. It says, and Saul chose him 3,000 men of Israel, whereof 2,000 were with Saul in Michmash and in Mount Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin. So Saul has him 3,000 personal bodyguards. He gives 1,000 of them to his son, Jonathan. And he keeps 1,000, and he keeps 2,000, twice as many, for himself. I think they split up in 2 places. So already you see Samuel's words come into bear. Samuel's words always come to bear. That's why he's such a renowned figure. Okay, let's keep going because I'll go off on a tangent real quick. It says, and the rest of the people he sent every man to his tent. And Jonathan smote the garrison of the Philistines that was in Geba. And the Philistines heard of it. And Saul blew the trumpet throughout all the land, saying, let the Hebrews hear. And all Israel heard say that Saul had smitten a garrison of the Philistines, and that Israel also was had in abomination with the Philistines. And the people were called together after Saul to Gilgal, and the Philistines gathered themselves together to fight with Israel, 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and people as the sand which is on the seashore in multitude. And they came up and pitched in Michmash, eastward from Bethaven. When the men of Israel saw that they were in a strait, for the people were distressed, then the people did hide themselves in caves and in thickets and in rocks and in high places and in pits. 1 Samuel chapter 13 verses 7 through 13 reads, and some of the Hebrews went over Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. As for Saul, he was yet in Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. And he tarried 7 days according to the set time that Samuel had appointed. But Samuel came not to Gilgal, and the people were scattered from him. And Saul said, bring hither a burnt offering to me, and peace offerings. And he offered the burnt offering. And it came to pass that as soon as he had made an end of offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him, that he might salute him. And Samuel said, what hast thou done? And Saul said, because I saw that the people were scattered from me, and that thou camest not within the days appointed, and that the Philistines gathered themselves together at Michmash. Therefore said I, the Philistines will come down now upon me to Gilgal, and I have not made supplication unto the Lord. I forced myself therefore and offered a burnt offering. 1 Samuel chapter 13 verses 14 through 18 reads, and Samuel said to Saul, thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord thy God, which he commanded thee. For now would the Lord have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever. But now thy kingdom shall not continue. The Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be a captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded thee. And Samuel arose and got him up from Gilgal unto Gibeah of Benjamin. And Saul numbered the people that were present with him, about 600 men. And Saul and Jonathan his son, and the people that were present with him, abode in Gibeah of Benjamin. But the Philistines encamped in Michmash, and the spoilers came out of the camp of the Philistines in 3 companies. One company turned unto the way that leads to Ophrah, unto the land of Shula, and another company turned the way to Beth-horon, and another company turned to the way of the border that looketh to the valley of Zeboim, toward the wilderness. I'm having to read this where I didn't wrote it wrong. Now let me just pause right here for a minute to explain and elaborate what just happened. You have to forgive me because it's late. Okay? Look at me for a sec. The fall of Saul is going to come by way of 3 key mistakes that he's going to make, and this is the first one. We talked about in the last episode when Saul first got anointed as king. When Samuel looked to anoint him in front of the people, Saul was nowhere to be found. They looked to the Lord for answers, and God said, he's hiding among the stuff. What I want you to understand is Saul, what you're going to see is Saul has a habit of folding. I didn't understand this. Please pay attention to me. And this just may be my opinion, but I had trouble understanding this at first. One of the reasons I felt so sorry for Saul is because I didn't understand what he did that was so wrong. I felt his punishment was not justified by his flaws, by his mistakes. I didn't understand why Saul was so harshly punished for his mistakes and errors. But what you gonna see is Saul kind of tells on himself from the very beginning. When Samuel went to anoint Saul, Saul was hiding among the stuff. And what you gonna see with Saul, like Samson, it's a pattern with him. He looks the part, he plays the part, but when the going get tough, Saul folds. And that's what happens here. It says, Jonathan, he attacks a garrison of Philistines. And when the rest of the Philistine army hear about it, they come and gather themselves for battle at one of Saul's strongholds in Michmash. Remember, that's where he got, I think, 1,000 or maybe 2,000 of them troops there. So they gather themselves there. And Saul's troops, they get scared. They get to running and scattered. They get to running and hiding. They are scattered, the Bible says. And Saul gets scared. Now, Samuel, if you remember, it was either last episode or a couple episodes ago, Samuel gave Saul specific instructions. Go watch it if you don't remember. Samuel gave Saul specific instructions on what to do. He's told Saul that it would be, he prophesied to Saul what was going to happen. And everything that Samuel prophesied has happened up until this point. And Samuel prophesied about this particular time in Saul's life that's happening, that we talking about. And he says that you are to wait for me 7 days. And I'm going to come and offer sacrifices, burnt offerings, and sacrifices of peace offerings. And the 7 days pass, Samuel doesn't come. So Saul, because he's afraid, he folds and performs Samuel's office. And you know what? To be honest, I'm not I can't say I would not have done the same thing. If put in those shoes, it's a good question. Leave it in the comment section. What would you have done? I really want to know. I want to know what you would have done. You know the situation. Okay? Now, leave it. I want everybody watching this. I want my comment section filled up. I want to know what you would have done. I'm not gonna let you sit in the comfort of your home and pretend like you as brave as you think you are. Here's the scenario. You're Saul. Samuel tells you, it's all celebrations and confetti when you anointed as king. And Samuel tells you it's gonna come a time, amongst other stuff that he tells you it's gonna come a time you are going to wait 7 days for me, and I'm gonna come and sacrifice. So this time comes, and it just so happens that your sworn enemies, your arch nemesis, are gathered. The Bible says 30,000 chariots. Ladies and gentlemen, in these barbaric times, chariots are the most advanced weaponry of the day. And the Philistines come with 30,000 of them. 30,000. And it says troops like the multitude of the sand of the seashore. So naturally, your troops are scared. They scatter, they run and hide. They scampering, okay? You left alone with 600 troops. And Samuel ain't showed up. It's been 7 days. Samuel ain't showed up. What would you have done? I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. I don't know what I would have done. I can't say I wouldn't have done what Saul did. Let me know what you would have did in the comment sections. Anyway, Saul, as soon as he's done sacrificing, how ironic. I don't think it's coincidental. I think it's spooky. As soon as he's done sacrificing, Samuel shows up. How convenient. What are the chances of that? Saul can't catch a break. It's almost like the forces of nature, it's almost like life itself is working against him. He can't get right. Samuel tears him a new one and tells him, because you can't get right, you won't rule long. You won't be the man for long. Your reign will not last, is what he tells him. Now, to me, that would have been devastating. It seems to me, honestly, leave in the comment section if you think I'm wrong. I know Soap Man's mom will, but it seems to me like it goes in one end out the other. It seems to me like Saul, he ain't tripping too hard off of what Samuel telling him. But this is the first of Saul's fatal flaws. This is the first mistake, the first of 3 errors Saul is gonna make before he hits rock bottom. So Samuel lets him know, you didn't mess up. Your replacement has already been chosen. I don't know if Saul caught that. It may just be the way the narrator tells the story, but honestly, from the way that the story is told in the Bible, it seems that Saul brushes this off to me. It seems that it goes in one ear and out the other, because let me see if I can find it real quick. It says, but now thy kingdom shall not continue. The Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart. And Saul, so after it says, after Samuel gives this foreboding threat, it says, and Saul numbered the people that were present with him. That's why I said he blows it up. He like, okay, yeah, whenever you get through, I still got a vast army of Philistines at my door. Whenever you get through, I still have a kingdom to reign. Whenever you get through, I'm still the man now. So, I hate to say that it fell on deaf ears. I'm just saying that's the way it looked to me. Now, here's why I feel for Saul. It seemed like Samuel wasn't gonna show up. It had been 7 days and he wasn't there. What would you have done? Leave it in the comment section. I know so many of y'all gonna lie and say you wouldn't have did nothing, but I still wanna see you lie. I still wanna read the lie. I feel for Saul already. His mistake is so human. His error is so common. He's a great, I can't say he's a great anything. He's a good standard king, flaws and all. But he's nothing special. No, he can't cut the mustard. He can't get right when it comes to these politics. He's got his hands full trying to rule the kingdom. You know what I mean? You asking too much of him with all this spiritual stuff. Hey, the way he looks at it, that's Samuel's job. And Samuel ain't him. What else am I supposed to do? He steps up. He actually thinks he's doing the right thing. That's the point. It took me a while to get it across to you, but that's the point I'm really trying to get across to you. That's what makes it so sad and tragic, because it is literally like, it seems like life is literally working against Saul. Samuel didn't show up. Saul thinks he's doing the right thing. And Samuel shows up and tells him, not only did you not do the right thing, but you've displeased God, and he's going to strip you of your crown. So from the very beginning, it's tragic. From the very start, even from the very, as soon as the honeymoon is over, and believe you me, it is over. As soon as the honeymoon is over, Saul is at war and he commits this first error, and it seems to be a fatal error. Samuel shows up, says, you trying to step in my office, what you did is going to cost you the kingdom. Saul numbers his troops, the Bible says. 1 Samuel chapter 13 verses 19 through 23 reads, now there was no smith found throughout all the land of Israel, for the Philistines said, lest the Hebrews make them swords or spears. But all the Israelites went down to the Philistines to sharpen every man his share, and his coulter, and his axe, and his mattock. Yet they had a file for the mattocks, and for the coulters, and for the forks, and for the axes, and to sharpen the goads. So it came to pass in the day of battle that there was neither sword nor spear found in the hand of any of the people that were with Saul and Jonathan. But with Saul and with Jonathan his son was there found. And the garrison of the Philistines went out to the passage of Michmash. 1 Samuel chapter 14 verses 1 through 2 reads, now it came to pass upon a day that Jonathan the son of Saul said unto the young man that bare his armor, come, and let us go over to the Philistines' garrison that is on the other side. But he told not his father. And Saul tarried in the uttermost part of Gibeah under the pomegranate tree which is in Migron. and the people that were with him were about 600 men. So let me see if I can sort out what happens here. And let me be honest with you. It's hard for me to make out exactly what happened because of the way the story is told and the way the Bible tells stories. Sometimes it hops around. It'll tell you a story, like it'll give you a brief synopsis of a story, and then, you know, in the very next passage, it'll go into detail about the same story, and you'll think it's talking about a totally different story. So what happens here is, I'm not sure if Jonathan attacks a Philistine garrison and then the Philistines come out to go to war. Okay, so this is how it's worded. It's worded that Jonathan attacks a Philistine garrison, and the Philistines hear about it, and they come out to go to war against Saul and the children of Israel. Then what it seems like is going to happen is that Jonathan's going to attack another Philistine garrison. That's what it seems like to me is going to happen. Now, what's difficult for me to understand is, how is Jonathan this bad of a dude, and the Bible don't go more in depth into his story? This dude single-handedly attacks what seems to be like two Philistine garrisons, and leave it in the comment section if I'm wrong, if anybody understands this story better than me. But this is what it seems like happens. That Jonathan and his servant single-handedly attack two Philistine garrisons and are successful in taking them. This is one bad Mamba Bahajamba. Okay, so let's get back into the story. So the Philistines have gathered themselves against King Saul of Israel. Jonathan and his companion, his servant, they sneak off without Saul knowing about it. And they go and attack a Philistine garrison. I think that's what happens. That's the way it's worded. So Jonathan, he comes up with this plan to sneak off, and they stake out this Philistine garrison, and Jonathan says to his servant, he says, look, here's what we gonna do. We gonna step out to where they can see us, and if they come down to us, we gonna tell them to come down to us, and if they come down to us, we gonna stay where we are, and we gonna let them come down to us. But if they tell us to come up to them, then we gonna know that God is with us. And we gonna, go up to them and take them. It's a strange plan to me, looking at it from my perspective in modern times. Maybe I'm not understanding it right. That's the way it's worded. I didn't really have time to fit all that I wanted to talk about into an hour. That's why I didn't put the slides up with, what was actually written. And I'm just telling you. But anywho, 1 Samuel chapter 14, verses 13 through 19 reads, and Jonathan climbed up upon his hands and upon his feet, and his armor bearer after him. And they fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer slew after him. And that first slaughter which Jonathan and his armor bearer made was about 20 men, within as it were an half acre of land, which a yoke of oxen might plow. And there was trembling in the host, in the field, and among all the people. The garrison and the spoilers, they also trembled, and the earth quaked. So it was a very great trembling. And the watchmen of Saul and Gibeah of Benjamin looked, and behold, the multitude melted away, and they went on beating down one another. Then said Saul unto the people that were with him, number now, and see who is gone from us. And when they had numbered, behold, Jonathan and his armor bearer were not there. And Saul said to Ahiah, bring hither the ark of God, for the ark of God was at that time with the children of Israel. And it came to pass, while Saul talked unto the priests, that the noise that was in the host of the Philistines went on and increased. And Saul said to the priest, withdraw thine hand. So, let's take it from the top, so that we can understand this correctly. Jonathan attacks a garrison of Philistines, and the rest of the Philistine army hears about it, and they come out to battle. Jonathan and his armor bearer, they sneak away and attack another Philistine garrison, killing 20 men. Okay, but it says, and that first slaughter with which Jonathan and his armor bearer made was about 20 men. So, reading it, look, what we know is Jonathan is single-handedly wrecking shop. Him and his armor bearer climb up and slay a garrison or two. It causes a tumult in the Philistine ranks. It causes a tumult. They start fighting each other. From Saul and his men's perspective, they start melting away. So Saul, trying to figure out what's going on, he like, take a census of the troops and see who's missing. Somebody up to something. So they noticed that his son Jonathan and his son's armor bearer are missing, because they didn't climbed up a mountainside and got to wrecking shop. This dude Jonathan is a beast. Saul's son Jonathan is a beast, which is a testament to Saul, which is a testament to Saul's father, because the Bible says that Saul's father Kish was a mighty man of power. Now, either that means of strength of arm, or he had money, or both. So, by all accounts, Saul and his line, they are no punks. They are no pushovers. They are strong men. But what you're gonna find is, a lot of times in life, that ain't enough. So Jonathan, Saul's son, for right now, it is enough, because Jonathan, Saul's son, and his armor bearer, they wreck shop. They win the day. They save the day, like the old judges, like the judges of old, at least of old by their time period. Another victory, another celebration, another win on Saul's belt. This looks good for Saul. His son, single-handedly turning the tide of this battle. 1 Samuel chapter 14 and 20 reads, and Saul and all the people that were with him assembled themselves, and they came to the battle. And behold, every man's sword was against his fellow, and there was a very great discomfiture. 1 Samuel chapter 14 verses 23 through 30 reads, So the Lord saved Israel that day, and the battle passed over unto Beth-haven, and the men of Israel were distressed that day. For Saul had adjured the people, saying, Cursed be the man that eateth any food until evening, that I may be avenged on mine enemies. So none of the people tasted any food, and all they of the land came to a wood, and there was honey upon the ground. And when the people were come into the wood, behold, the honey dropped, but no man put his hand to his mouth, for the people feared the oath. But Jonathan heard not when his father charged the people with the oath. Wherefore he put forth the end of the rod that was in his hand, and dipped it in an honeycomb, and put his hand to his mouth, and his eyes were enlightened. Then answered Then answered one of the people and said, Thy father straitly charged the people with an oath, saying, Cursed be the man that eateth any food this day. And the people were faint. Then said Jonathan, My father hath troubled the land. See, I pray you, how mine eyes have been enlightened, because I tasted a little bit of this honey. How much more, if haply the people had eaten freely today of the spoil of their enemies which they found. For had there not been now a much greater slaughter of the Philistines. Now Jonathan makes an excellent point right here. Jonathan makes an excellent point right here. Because once Jonathan and his armor bearer caused this tumult in the Philistine ranks and turned the tide of battle, King Saul and his men assemble, and they take advantage of the situation, and they go on the offensive. They start when they get to where they're about to engage in battle with the Philistines. They notice that the Philistines have turned on each other. They fighting each other, so they capitalize on the situation. It's a really sweet situation for them. So Saul, he issues this idiotic, bumbling decree that nobody can eat until he's avenged of his enemies. So the people are starving. At the same time, they trying to fight on empty stomachs. His son Jonathan, who is a hero of this battle, I might add, does not hear this silly decree that his father, the king, makes. He dips his staff in some honey, in a honeycomb, eats. One of the troops tell him, You just messed up. Your father said, Cursed be any man that eat until he is avenged of his enemies. Jonathan says, What kind of sense does that make? We avenging ourselves of our enemies right now. And how much more greater would we have avenged ourselves of our enemies if we could eat, especially after we done slaughtered them and there's food laying all over the place? It makes no sense. But this is the beginning of the end for Saul. As you can see, even right now, it's only 2 years into his reign, and he's stumbling. Then Saul said to Jonathan, Tell me what thou hast done. And Jonathan told him and said, I did but taste a little honey with the end of the rod that was in mine hand. And lo, I must die? And Saul answered, I didn't wrote this wrong. And Saul answered, Did do so and more also, for thou shalt surely die, Jonathan. And the people said unto Saul, Shall Jonathan die? Who hath wrought this great salvation in Israel? God forbid. As the Lord liveth, there shall not one hair of his head fall to the ground, for he hath wrought with God this day. So the people rescued Jonathan, that he died not. Then Saul went up from following the Philistines, and the Philistines went to their own place. So Saul took the kingdom over Israel, and fought against all his enemies on every side, against Moab, and against the children of Ammon, and against Edom, and against the kings of Zobah, and against the Philistines, and against whithersoever he turned himself, he vexed them. And he gathered an host, and smote the Amalekites, and delivered Israel out of the hand of them that spoiled them. This is a very important passage right here. As you can see, Saul, he is just screwing up. He issues this stupid decree, and then because his son, even though his son didn't hear the decree, he threatens to kill his own son, heir to the throne. The people and the troops have to step in and say, "Oh, hell to the no." It says, Jonathan, dude, I can't even dive into this enough. Jonathan is, he is flabbergasted. He like, are you serious? I must die? Because I took a handful of honey? I didn't even hear your decree. And his father says, oh yes, for sure, you will die. And the people are like, are you stupid? They say, shall Jonathan die who wrought this great salvation in Israel? God forbid. As the Lord liveth, there shall not one hair of his head fall to the ground. They had to step in. It's about to be a mutiny. So you see right now Saul's rule, it's only been 2 years in and it's rocky. I can't put my finger on it and gather myself to come with the correct verbiage. Other than to say it's rocky and he's stumbling and he can't get right. It's just not smooth. He has no finesse. He's rigid. It's like he don't got good common sense. Anywho, so it gives the Bible gives an overall synopsis of Saul's reign. It says he has no peace. He fights with his neighbors all the time. The Philistines, Moab, the kings of Zobah, Edom, Ammon, everyone. He vexes them and they vex him. And that is the reign of Saul, the first king of Israel. 1 Samuel chapter 14 verse 52 reads, and there was sore war against the Philistines all the days of Saul. And when Saul saw any strong man or any valiant man, he took him unto him. What you need to understand is these are Samuel's prophetic words coming to life. It tells you that, it gives you this synopsis of Saul's reign, and it is a reign of continuous war. It is a reign of stress. And the worst of it all are the Philistines. His greatest enemies, his number one nemesis are the Philistines. But he's at war with everyone. And it says, like Samuel predicted, Saul snatches up any inkling of a good soldier that he sees. He is always on the hunt and looking for men of war. That is what he values. He's always on the hunt for new assets. Because this is his life. This is his legacy. It is a legacy of continual strife and struggle, clawing and climbing and trying to stay ahead and get ahead. 1 Samuel chapter 15 verses 1 through 8 reads, and Samuel also said, not Saul, the Lord sent me to anoint thee to be a king. Samuel also said, not Saul. The Lord sent, I wrote that wrong. I'm sure it doesn't say not Saul, but I have to read it the way I wrote it. Samuel also said to Saul, the Lord sent me to anoint thee to be king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore hearken unto the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way, when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek, and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. And Saul gathered the people together and numbered them in Telaim, 200,000 footmen and 10,000 men of Judah. 210,000 men altogether. And Saul came to a city of Amalek and laid wait in the valley. And Saul said to the Kenites, go, depart, get you down from among the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them. For ye showed kindness to all the children of Israel when they came up out of Egypt. So the Kenites departed from among the Amalekites, and Saul smote the Amalekites from Havilah until thou comest to Shur, that is over against Egypt. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. Now, I don't know if you was just paying attention now, but Saul, true to form, follows a specific pattern. Do you see a pattern here? Samuel gives Saul specific instructions, like he did before, and Saul doesn't follow those instructions. I'm not going to reread it because I don't have time. But what Samuel says is, he says, now Saul, God has not forgotten how the Amalekites laid wait for the children of Israel when they came up out of the land of Egypt and attacked Moses and the children of Israel from behind. And Moses swore in that day, by decree of God, that he would wipe the Amalekites out from the history books. He says, now take up arms and fulfill that promise. He says, leave none alive. He says, but kill the sheep and the oxen, man, woman, boy, girl, child, adult, oxen, sheep, ass, lay it to waste, utterly destroy it. Can you do that? Saul says, I'm the man for the job. So Saul goes and he utterly destroys everything except the king and the best of the sheep and oxen. Excuse me. He comes back with spoils of war. Now, folks, what's this man's problem? Was he just not warned? Did he just not get into trouble for doing the exact same thing? But as you're going to see, is that when the going gets tough and with enough pressure applied, Saul is going to fold. 1 Samuel chapter 15 verses 9 through 16 reads, but Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep and of the oxen and of the fatlings and of the lambs and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them, but everything that was vile and refuse, that they destroyed utterly. Then came the word of the Lord unto Samuel, saying, it repenteth me that I have set up Saul to be king, for he is turned back from following me, and hath not performed my commandments. And it grieved Samuel, and he cried unto the Lord all night. And when Samuel rose early to meet Saul in the morning, it was told Samuel, saying, Saul came to Carmel, and behold, he set him up a place, and is gone about, and passed on, and gone down to Gilgal. And Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said unto him, blessed be thou of the Lord. I have performed the commandments of the Lord. Here we see again Saul thinking he did the right thing. He think he got off. He says, I have performed the commandment of the Lord. And Samuel said, what meaneth this bleating of the sheep in mine ears, and the lowing of the oxen which I hear? And Saul said, they have brought them from the Amalekites. For the people spared the best of the sheep and of the oxen to sacrifice unto the Lord thy God, and the rest we have utterly destroyed. Then Samuel said unto Saul, stay, and I will tell thee what the Lord hath said to me this night. And he said unto him, say on. Now, when Saul says, say on, I have a feeling he's in familiar territory. He knows he's in trouble. Now, that's just my own personal opinion. I have a feeling he knows he's in trouble. Because Samuel says, sit down. He says, man, you can't fool Samuel. Samuel said, Samuel walks up, Saul walks up like, what's up? Saul, he trying to play it off. He like, what's up? Blessed be thou. What's happening? I have performed the commandments of the Lord. Samuel says then, why do I hear all this commotion? Why do I hear all these animals? And Saul lies. He flat out lies. He says, oh, well, we brought this stuff back to sacrifice it to the Lord. Samuel says, oh, okay, well, sit down. And I'm going to tell you what God has told me this night. He's talking about the night prior to right now them meeting. He's talking about what God has already told him, mind you. And this is what he says. 1 Samuel chapter 15, verses 17 through 21 reads, and Samuel said, when thou wast little in thine own sight, wast thou not made the head of the tribes of Israel? And the Lord anointed thee king over Israel. And the Lord sent thee on a journey and said, go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they be consumed. Wherefore then didst thou not obey the voice of the Lord, but didst fly upon the spoil, and didst evil in the sight of the Lord? And Saul said unto Samuel, yea, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord, and have gone the way which the Lord sent me, and have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people took of the spoil sheep and oxen, the chief of the things which should have been utterly destroyed, to sacrifice unto the Lord thy God in Gilgal. 1 Samuel chapter 15, verses 22 through 29 reads, and Samuel said, hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice. Damn. That's that one-hitter quitter right there. Samuel, he puts a in right there. That's that dagger in the heart of Dracula. I'm telling you, that's the stake in the heart of Dracula right there. That's the silver bullet to the werewolf. Samuel end all that game plan with that one line right there. He says, behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Heavy, heavy, heavy words, folks. He says, because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he hath also rejected thee from being king. And Saul said unto Samuel, I have sinned. Here's the confession, folks. And Saul said unto Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord and thy words, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice. Now therefore, I pray thee, pardon my sin, and turn again with me, that I may worship the Lord. And Samuel said unto Saul, I will not return with thee, for thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord hath rejected thee from being king over Israel. And as Samuel turned about to go away, he laid hold upon the skirt of his mantle and rent it. And Samuel said unto him, the Lord hath rent the kingdom of Israel from thee the Lord hath rent the kingdom of Israel from thee this day, and hath given it to a neighbor of thine that is better than thou. And also the strength of Israel will not lie nor repent, for he is not a man that he should repent. Folks, this is as bad a rebuke as an individual can get. Coming from God through Samuel. Look, at some point in this conversation between Samuel and Saul, King Saul gets it. It hits home. I think it's when Samuel tells him it is better Obedience is better than sacrifice. But at some point, it hits home to Saul that he has messed up big. And he confesses that the reason he brought back the fat of all the goody was because he feared the people. He folded. He folded under the pressure of his people who wanted to bring back that stuff. He folded, plain and simple. And this is the key flaw of King Saul. He, on the outside, he is what he's cracked up to be. But on the inside, he doesn't measure up. I'm giving you the reasons. I'm giving you the reasons he's going to lose the throne. On the exterior, he is everything you would expect a king to appear like, to appear to be, to look like. On the outside, he is the king that you would want as your king. But on the inside, he does not measure up. And this is the fatal flaw of Saul. And you saw it from the very beginning at his inauguration. He folded. He hid among the stuff. And as much as I like Saul, it's going to lead to his ultimate fall and failure. This is the failure of Saul. He folds. He doesn't measure up. He doesn't have what it takes on the inside. And this is the second of his 3 errors that he's going to make before he ultimately hits rock bottom. This is error number 2. And he realizes it. And Samuel gives him one of, if not the worst rebuke and rejection I've ever seen. And Samuel says to him, God has already replaced you. He's rejected you. You're not good enough. He's picked someone better. Oh my God. To hear those words coming from Samuel, talking about, if I was Saul, to hear those words coming from another man, speaking for God, and he talking about me. The person you looked to before and spoke so highly of before, to have it come to this. So Saul does something very peculiar. He does something very interesting. As Samuel turns away and walks away, Saul has a knee-jerk reaction. He reaches out and he grabs the mantle of Samuel's clothing, and it tears. Samuel, oh my goodness. This story is so sad. Samuel, and look folks, mind you, Samuel has cried all night for King Saul. So he pities him. But he don't want no smoke with God. He has a job to do. So I want to explain his position, because he comes off, when he meets Saul, he comes off so cold and callous. But understand, he has a job to do. He don't want to be in Saul's position. It's a reason Samuel is the bearer of bad news, and Saul is the recipient. So Samuel, he's grieved for Saul. He's done his mourning. But right now, he got work to do. And he turns and tells Saul, so seemingly in such a cold-hearted way, that just like you ripped my clothes, God has ripped the kingdom from your clutches. 1 Samuel chapter 15 verses 30 through 34 reads, Then he said, I have sinned, yet honor me now, I pray thee, for the elders of my people. And before he says, then he said, I have sinned, meaning Saul. Then he said, I have sinned, yet honor me now, I pray thee, before the elders of my people and before Israel, and turn again with me, that I may worship the Lord thy God. So Samuel turned again after Saul, and Saul worshiped the Lord. Then said Samuel, Bring ye hither to me Agag, the king of the Amalekites. And Agag came unto him delicately. And Agag said, Surely the bitterness of death is past. And Samuel said, As thy sword hath made women childless, so shall thy mother be childless among women. And Samuel hewed Agag in pieces before the Lord in Gilgal. Then Samuel went to Ramah, and Saul went up to his house in Gibeah of Saul. And Samuel came no more to see Saul until the day of his death, which we'll talk about later. Nevertheless, Samuel mourned for Saul, and the Lord repented that he had made Saul king over Israel. So, we coming to the end, folks. And we end on this note. After Samuel, on behalf of God Almighty, completely and utterly rebukes and rejects King Saul as being king over Israel. Saul says, listen, okay, I understand. But this day, do me this honor and let me sacrifice and perform the traditions and rituals. Give me this day. Samuel agrees. And at the end of all the ceremonies, Samuel says, oh, by the way, bring me King Agag, the king of the Amalekites that I told you to utterly destroy, along with all the rest of the stuff. And it says King Agag comes to him delicately, timidly, and says, surely the bitterness has passed. And Samuel says, oh no, I don't know how y'all do over there in Amalek, but over here, we don't let bygones be bygones, okay? We say what we mean, and we mean what we says. And so, can you imagine, let's go back to this slide. Can you imagine what's going on through King Agag of the Amalekite? Can you imagine what's going on through his head, in his head? Now he's thinking to himself, he didn't got away scot-free. He's sitting in the dungeon. He said, hey, I got my life, couple square meals a day. I can live with that. And then here come the guards rattling on his door. And he say to himself, the war is over. What could they possibly want with me? The war is over. I lost. I concede. I didn't wave the white flag. What they want with me? So, imagine the horror of this man when he sees Samuel. So he says, bruh, come on. Come on. You know the sky probably got dim and dark. I can only imagine that ominous scene of seeing old last judge of Israel, Samuel, bearing down on him with a look in his eye of all business, with a sword in his hand. I want you to look at this picture right here. Look at King Saul right over here. Powerless to Samuel. He's king, but right now he's powerless. That's why I said to you, it's going to be these three individuals, and they're going to vie for power. They're going to toss power back and forth. Now up until this point, we've only discussed two of these three characters: Samuel, the last judge of Israel, and Saul, the first king of Israel. And even though Saul is king, right now Samuel holds the power. So you see this nice dichotomy between the government and the church and the state, and this power grab between the two, this power toss. I really don't know how to describe it or word it, but you know what I'm talking about. Look how powerless King Saul is. Look how indifferent he is in this picture. Pictures speak 1,000 words. King Agab, look, King Agab right here. He looking at Saul like, ain't you gonna say something? Can't you do something? No, he can't, because right now Samuel's in charge. He's there on God's behalf, and it ain't nothing Saul can do about it. And so the Bible says that Samuel hews King Agag into pieces. Let me take 60 seconds to explain what that means, because I've overrun my time, and I'm sure Soap Man Mama gonna have something to say about that. Samuel, the Bible says, hews King Agag into pieces. Samuel is old. We don't know exactly how old he is, but he's an old man. The death of King Agag is not quick. The death of King Agag is not clean. Samuel is old. I don't know if you remember back in the story of Gideon, my episode Gideon the hero. Gideon tells his son to kill the king of his enemies. The reason he tells his son to do so is so that it'll hurt more, because the son is young and weak. Well, Samuel is like a child. He's old and weak, so he can't just clean cut. He can't just quick kill King Agag. He has to do it slowly. He has to take his time. So he hacks him up into pieces until the job is done. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a slow, grueling, barbaric, by modern standards, inhumane execution of King Agag of the Amalekites. So is the time of the days of the judges that we live in, but they have come to an end, because now there is a king reigning over the children of Israel, and his name is Saul. He started out as a good king, but now his fall is imminent. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of Son of a Preacher Man. If If you have any likes or dislikes, any advice, any insults, compliments, flirts, please leave them in the comments section. I'll see you next time, same soap channel, and we're out.